Hey, this is Tom Arnold, and you're listening to the whole podcast.
Welcome to the whole. I am Rob Sprance.
I'm Franco Valley. Sure. In that order.
Well, most importantly, we are joined by Jim O'Hare. How you doing, Jim?
I'm good. You know, I saw the Tom Arnold intro. I did a film of him. It was either last summer or the summer before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we shot it in Chicago.
He's a great guy, man.
We had a lot of laughs.
Yeah, we
played brothers.
Oh, you did?
What movie?
Yeah, and his acting style was more, well, let's just kind of, instead of sticking to those words, let's just kind of play around. It's more real. Like it is, except there's the writer right over there. I don't think he's going to go for
it. Well, I tell you, we had him booked for 45 minutes, and it was 2 hours and change. He just goes, man. He
just goes, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm so glad you could join us, Jim. Huge fan of Parks and Rec. But most importantly, like even before we started, like it's great to see your personality, and not get Jerry, which is just what you probably hear a lot, I'm sure.
A lot. Yeah. Well, one time I did this what do you call it? Like a college where they, I went to somewhere in Boston or something, and I spoke to the students. And when it was over, you do the selfies and everything. And this girl comes up and she looked upset, and I said, "Hi, what's going on?" And she goes, "You were dirtier than I expected." And I was like, "Bitch, you don't know the half of it." And I get it. And I do get it. They think they're going to get Jerry. And I get it. There's certain characters I've loved all my life, and it would be strange if all of a sudden I met them and they were totally different. And it's not that I'm totally different. I mean, everybody brings a little of themselves to a character, but, please, I'm not nearly as nice as Jerry. I mean, we all should be, but I am not. So, yeah, lesson learned that night for that young gal.
Yeah, absolutely. But so, your story is a very interesting one to me because, a lot of times people, when somebody makes it on a big show, they think it happened overnight for somebody. But meanwhile, it's like always, oh, this guy's new. Meanwhile, you've done so much acting work. So, like, when did you start? When did you first get into acting?
It was the first thing I did was radio. I was a DJ.
Really?
And I had a gig. Yeah. And when I went to Loyola University in Chicago, and I was one of these just dumbasses. Like I was actually a decent student in high school. I was top 10% of my class. And I think there were, I don't know, close to 500 kids or whatever. So I wasn't a moron, but I wasn't a genius. But I just did not know what I wanted to do next. I knew it involved college most likely because other people were doing that. And then I declared, and this is embarrassing, I declared that I was going to be an accountant only because some of my buddies were going to be an accountant. That sounds like something that people do. So, I mean, just stupid. Thankfully, college did what it's supposed to do. And I took other classes and other things I was interested in, and they had a radio station there, WLUW Chicago, and it was great, and anybody could get on. There was no talent involved. They needed someone to fill the hours. They had to fill the hours. It only went around a 2-block radius of the school, so you couldn't do too much wrong. But I really found that I loved it. Like, I really enjoyed it. So after all that, I went to this, I think it was called the Midwest Broadcast Academy, something like that. And I got my license. At the time, you had to have one. I don't know if you do now, to become a DJ. And I learned how to edit. And this is in the days when you were editing with razors and tape going across a thing, and you get other tape and you put it on, like, and we had carts that would line up because commercials, each one was on a cart, and it was crazy. So after it was over, I got my first gig in a little town called Rensselaer, Indiana. And my log-on, when I look back, I'm so embarrassed by it, but it's funny, so what the hell. Because in my mind it rhymed, but when you hear it, it doesn't.
Good morning for this one. Go ahead.
It would be good morning, Jim O'Hare on the air in Rensselaer. It doesn't. It's a forced, horrible thing. But at the time, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm nailing this shit. I got this down.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did that for a while, and it was nuts. It was a little station. Our big prize, if you called in and you won something, was a 6-pack of Pepsi. I mean, that was the prize. And dude, people would drive 10, 20 miles to come get that 6-pack of Pepsi. And sometimes through snowstorms, there were days when you couldn't get there. So your car couldn't go through. So they'd pick you up on a snowmobile. It was nuts. And I was making $100 after taxes. I made $120 a week, and I worked 60 hours. So a lot of dues were paid. And some random, I wish I knew who the person was because he changed my life in many ways, and I don't know who he is. A call came in one day. The secretary said, Jim, somebody wants to talk to you off air. So during the commercial break, I said, hey, what's going on? I think it's some local person about something. And he goes, listen, my daughter goes to St. Joe's College, which is in this little town at the time. I hear it's gone now, but it was there. And he said, so I'm back and forth a lot. I think you're pretty funny. If you don't keep doing this DJ thing, you should look into Second City. They got a great program there, and I think you'd fit perfectly. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Nice advice. Goodbye, go back to my job. And then after one day when the program or the guy who owned the station started punching holes in walls, I thought it was time to leave. And I actually ended up, that phone call kind of resonated, and I looked into Second City and I started taking classes there. And that's when everything changed. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you the moment that I knew, I can even get chills thinking about it, that not that it would ever pay my bills, but I knew the moment that I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Now, again, thinking it would be a hobby, most likely, but I went on stage at Second City and I got that first laugh. And I don't know, it got the juices flowing. And that's kind of how the whole performance thing started, away from being a DJ.
Yeah, so they were, because that's one thing I was wondering if there was any improv involved in that. Because, a lot, Amy Poehler from the show,
I'm sorry, who?
she does tons. She started with tons of improv and still was doing it in the city. A lot of times she would show up at, I think, UCB.
UCB, sure.
Yeah, and she would show up, and it would always be you'd get tickets, but you'd never know who was going to be there, And there's so many people that I see, even show up on Parks and Rec, and other of Michael Schur's shows too, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and you were on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so you see those same people, and a lot of them came from that world, the improv world. So
she started UCB with Matt Walsh, Ian Roberts, and Matt Besser. Mm-hmm. And Matt Walsh, whose claim to fame now is he's been on a million things, but he was on Veep, the whole time. But Matt was one of the guys I would take classes with 100 years ago in Chicago. So it's kind of this tight little group. Everybody knows everybody, and it's so cool when you go on a show and you know people, because it's a little nerve-wracking when you're guesting on a show. Because, I always try to relate it to thinking about the first day on a new job. You're tense, you're nervous, and, television. So you show up and, a lot of shows have a click. Everybody knows everybody and you're the new guy. So it's so great when you see a familiar face. So that's why I always love anytime I walk on a set and someone like Matt or one of those people are there, because it takes a lot of weight off, I think.
Yeah, sure. So you go from, first of all, I just want to, I see a lot of people joining in the chat. We're going to get to any questions that you guys submit. Thank you. Just keep on sending them in the meantime. And thank you for joining us. We are The Whole Podcast. You can go to The Whole Live if you're not, if you're watching on Facebook or social media. But so you go to Second City and you start to work on improv. So in the beginning, there's got to be that strange hump where you start to learn. When you're a DJ, though, especially, you're talking more in the era from, maybe like Howard Stern wasn't blowing up just yet. So most of radio was very canned. It wasn't like you had a lot of expression, or did you in your show?
Well, it depends. In general, you're right, but it had two stations. It was LQI and WRIN. So they had an AM station and an FM station. So that's why I worked 60 hours a week. The AM station, you did get to show some personality because it was a talk show, basically. Whereas the FM side, it was pre-recorded music. So all you did there, you sat in the booth, and I think maybe every half hour, but I think it was every hour, you did weather, sports, maybe some topical news thing. But otherwise, you hit buttons, and there was no talking. But the daytime show, I did get to... That's how the guy driving through got to hear me, because people would call in. We had this thing called a party line, so people would call in and be like, "Hey, Jim, I got 2 sow that I need to get rid of, and I'll trade them for 1 heifer." And I mean, it was craziness. But these are hardworking farmers in this area, and they were making deals online. So I did get to play around a little there and show my personality. But improv changes everything. I recommend improv to anybody. I don't care what world you're in. You learn how to just connect with people better. When I first started taking improv at Second City, there were lawyers in the class. There was one doctor. And I was so impressed by that. I mean, there was obviously most of us were wannabe actors, but there were others. And I've learned that improv is a great way to learn how to be comfortable in front of people, because you learn in improv, it's not all about getting the laugh. It's just about communicating. And I think it's really, really important. I suggest that to people all the time, especially new actors. Jim, how should I start? Take some improv classes. Yeah. Learn some improv.
It's a great, we wanted to, a long time ago, we tried to do like an improv bit on the show just with us, just to see how we would do. I've often thought it would be so much fun to go to UCB and take a class and stuff like that. But, there is then you do have to eventually drift over to acting, where you're going to have to memorize lines and you're going to have to learn scripts. And so what's the moment from you're doing improv, you're loving it, but what's the moment then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm getting an offer, or I'm getting, someone's interested? Like, how did that happen? What was the first thing you wound up doing?
Well, the first, once I was in Chicago again, and, that's where the main base was. And so I got involved with other like-minded people that I went to class with. And we started our own comedy group. That's what everybody did. You started a comedy group. And it was called White Noise, just 6 people. And we ended up doing a lot of scripted comedy because 2 of the guys were just amazing writers. Yeah. And so they would write some of these scripts and it would just be great. So improv, we had, our shows were combo, a little improv, a little scripted. It was great. But for me, I just realized I wanted to try my hand at legit stuff too, as far as theater. So I started auditioning for legit theaters in Chicago, which was kind of scary because at the time I'm just known as kind of the big funny guy, and all the stuff I did was comedy. But I wanted to see if I could pull off the other stuff. So I did a show. I got cast into a show called The Boys Next Door. And it's this really sweet play about these mentally challenged guys who live in a group home. And wow, did I love that. I mean, there was some comedy in it, but it was also some nice dramatic stuff. And the director was awesome. And he knew this was not my background, but he took a chance on me. He worked with me. The other guys were incredibly generous with their time and their talent. And that's when I realized this is now just got to be a big part of me. This is what I'm going to do. It's going to be theater. Never kind of thinking TV and film could ever happen. I mean, I dreamt it like everybody else. I used to dream about being on table reads for TV shows, but it's kind of one of those pie in the sky things. But then our group, this White Noise group that we had, did a show called Stumpy's Gang. And it was so crazy. It was puppets and blood and Twinkies. At the top of the show, I ate 6 Twinkies. I mean, it was a fucking mess. I would be laid out in blood. I mean, it was crazy. It was a 1-act. It was 90 minutes. And it was basically me with puppets. And these puppets spewed blood. They were mutants that should have been incinerated, but I didn't. Instead, I created a puppet show with these puppets. And it became a cult show in Chicago, to the point where one night I'm showing up and I'm like, who are all these people? And there's a line outside the door and they're dressed like me, my character in the show. And I'm like, holy shit, we've hit. Like, this is crazy. And it did. We kept doing it. Went on for months and months and months, and we do late night shows of it. And people would be screaming, and I wore a little beanie. They'd wear little beanies and twist it, the little thing with the propeller on the top. It was crazy. And then I forget who brought it up, but somebody said we should see what this would be like in Los Angeles. Whoa, that seems scary. Damn, that's the big leagues. But as an actor, at that point, you hear about LA all the time. Some friends go and they try it, and they come back and they're like, "Oh, it's awful. Don't go. And then others go. Steve Carell went. I knew Steve, and all of a sudden, boy, look what So there was all different levels of what was happening with the people that went. And so, but we thought, well, you know what? We'll go. We'll do the show. If it collapses, it collapses. We all come back, and that'll be that. So that was the plan. And thankfully, the show became a cult thing here, too, in Los Angeles. And so then, instead of running, I think we were going to run September to October, I think was the plan. We ended up running through February of the following year. And so then we're wrapping it up, and we're going to go home. And I thought, well, we're out here, and there's this thing called pilot season. I keep hearing about pilot season. So give it a shot. And the nice thing is, for me, what really was awesome, when we did this show, Stumpy's Gang, with the blood and everything, because it became kind of a cult hit in LA, I got a lot of attention as far as agents and managers. And that's the toughest part when you come out here. The new guy, the new girl, to get an agent and a manager, because they're like, prove, what do you got? Show me your reel. And they're like, I just came from Chicago. I don't have a reel.
Yeah, it's
I did theater.
Funny too, because you can't really get any gigs unless you have an agent or a manager, and you can't.
Exactly. So it's that battle that everyone fights. And to be honest, I didn't fight it too hard, because I had agencies calling me saying, we saw you in the show last night. We'd love to have a meeting with you. Next thing you know, I have agents and a manager. So that was pretty awesome. And then through some miracle, I booked the first pilot season. And it's funny, when I talk to my friends now, they will tell you they knew I was never coming back to Chicago, to live full time. Right. They're like, we knew that this would happen. And I didn't. I was like, I will see you. And first it was going to be, I'll see you in October after the first run of the show. But then we got, extended. Then I'm like, okay, I'll see you at the end of February. Well, then pilot season happened. And then I booked actually the same day I booked the pilot, I booked a film. You guys have probably heard about it. It won 25 Oscars. It was called Ed, with me and Matt LeBlanc. And it was a monkey who farted and played baseball. And it
your
was
Oscar count may be off by about 26 or so, but
it was just, hey, at the time, please, a movie. What the hell? So I was thrilled. And actually, I will tell you this, because I've worked with Matt since. You won't find a sweeter guy or a nicer guy. And it was during that heyday when Friends was Friends. Yeah. And they were throwing movies at these guys, all of them. So cut to 10 years later or something like that, I do a guest on the final season of Friends. And Matt sees me. He's like, oh, my God. And he introduces me to everybody. He goes, Jim was in my shitty film. Because they all have that shitty film that they did during the craziness, So, but yeah, so I booked a pilot and a film, and it made me realize, because I love Chicago with all my heart. I have always said, if only all of this could have been there, I would have had the perfect life. I already have good looks and a huge penis, so that just would have, you know what I'm saying, Lori. You know what I'm saying.
No, I can feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You know what? That's my bad. Sorry. Okay.
It's all the way here in New York.
Yeah, that's on me. But I realized
in the email. My bad.
Yeah, exactly. So I realized if I'm gonna try to make a living at this, Chicago's a tough place for an actor to make a living. When I say a living, like a really, a decent one, because it's tough. There's so much great theater there. The great theater doesn't pay a whole lot of money. The occasional, and now we're talking at the time, we're talking mid-90s. So, there was, now Chicago has 5 or 6 productions going. So it's a whole different world right now. But in my day, we had The Untouchables, and once you did a guest spot on that, you were done. And I had done that. And then you got the occasional commercials. So I kind of just thought, I think I got to stay here and give it a shot. And that was 26 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, August.
Yeah. So, when you get your first movie, right? So first of all, you're so used to improv, but now obviously you have to do an audition now. So next is you saying, holy shit, what do I do for this audition? So, your first one, do you have anybody that can help you get through it? Or do you just because sometimes I hear they send you the pages, sometimes they give it to you when you get there. Do you have any experience? I guess you do learning lines because you worked with, in the improv, you said you did some scripted stuff, but the pressure's on now.
The pressure's on, and they do, the way a normal audition works is you get the call, hey, they want to see you for this project. And when you're just beginning, you do a lot of what's called pre-reads, because a casting director's job is to bring in the best people she can to the producers. She doesn't want to waste their time. So you do a pre-read. And then once you have a bit of a reputation, you don't do those anymore. So I would do the pre-reads a lot at the beginning because they have to get to know you. And in those days, you had to go to your agent's office and sit and read the script because there was no such thing as sending an email. This is, mid-90s. So yes, I would get it. And as it turned out, and thankfully still, knock on this noggin, I'm a pretty quick, I can memorize pretty quickly. And so that because you never know if you're going to be that person. Maybe I wouldn't have been someone who did. So generally you have the sides, they call the material sides, your couple of pages. So you generally have them in advance, but many times they will say to you, listen, would you read for this too? Like, in other words, they don't see you exactly as this guy, but maybe you could be this guy. So then you are thrown. They hand you the pages. They give you 10 minutes, while they're auditioning somebody else for the next role. And you come back in, and you certainly, in my case, I couldn't be memorized. I mean, sometimes it'd be pages and pages. So you do the best you can, but it's so scary. It's just so scary.
Now that happened to you at Parks and Rec, right? You didn't read for Jerry initially, right?
No, I read for Ron Swanson. Everybody did. The way it worked, the word got out. Amy Poehler's getting a show. She had just come off of SNL, her work on there, just awesome. She had a baby. And then, so there was this thing, it was called the Untitled Amy Poehler Project. That's all anybody knew. But Amy Poehler, it's going to be on NBC, and it's being created by Greg Daniels, who created the American Office version, and Michael Schur, who's been on The Office with Greg all these years, and he worked with Amy on SNL. So this had a lot of juice behind it. The way it worked is the guys kind of knew who they wanted for all the lead roles before they ever auditioned people, but the network was like, no, we got to see everybody, which I'm glad they did it that way, because Jerry didn't exist at the time. So they just brought in people to read for Ron Swanson, and then they could make judgments. And so I went in, I did my version of Ron Swanson, whatever the hell that is, whatever the hell that was. But I hope, can you imagine anybody other than Nick Offerman?
Nope.
It just, not in any world that I know of. And I'll tell you, I'm going to rant for a minute today, only because today the Emmy announcements came out. So let me rant for 1 second.
Sure.
I've actually won an Emmy, so I'm proud of that, and it sits in my dining room in a little case. That being said, I never understood. We did that show for 7 years. How Nick Offerman was never nominated, let alone win, but not even nominated for that character. That is such a different character that was not seen on television at the time.
Yep.
And not to knock those who were nominated, and I'm not going to say who, but some people I'm like, oh, they're doing that again. Oh, they're doing that again. Oh, they're doing that again. It made me crazy.
Sure.
It made me crazy. Yep. Yeah, and then today the Emmys came out, and some of the same old faces, and whatever. That is what it is, and it didn't affect my personal world, other than it pissed me off, because that was a rare character. Ron Swanson is not out there very often, and when it was played so perfectly by Nick Offerman, to not recognize it, for me, it made the Emmys be more like, oh, so that's just a popularity contest. That's not
Which
about,
is weird,
work all the time.
Which is so weird because that's such a popular character. Just even coming from somebody like, I'm in my 30s now, but that show came out, nearly when I was still in college. So
yeah, it's been 10 years, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been a decade. So at 21, I was watching that show and just like, that was one of the characters that brought me back because he was so dry and so witty and just like the delivery was so spot on. And that is really upsetting. Like if you really think about it.
I agree. It would make me crazy. And believe me, everybody, I'm sure Nick doesn't care, but there's something about, I probably am more upset about it than Nick is. It just made me crazy every year because he was doing such awesome work. I mean, the show overall, and I didn't write it, so this is no bragging like, oh, I made this. Please, I just played little Jerry. Well, not little, but you know what I mean. I just had my part of
character.
The large character, larger than life, yes. But Nick was doing Ron Swanson. I mean, I don't know. I could go on and on about it. I just wanted to, since today was the Emmys, it kind of refreshed the anger.
Yeah.
So, Jim, when you auditioned, did they say, no, you're not going to really be Ron, you're going to be Jerry?
No, they said nothing. What happened was I went in and I auditioned, and believe me, everybody was there. Like, I'm like, ooh, that's person's from this show. And then like, it was a bunch of heavy hitters auditioning because they were also auditioning for, at the time, Mark Brandanowitz, played by Paul Schneider. Because again, the network wanted to see everybody. So I went in, did my bit, had what I thought was a really good conversation with Mike and Greg, and then left. But I'm also, this has helped me and it's hurt me, I think. So maybe some people would disagree with my theory, but I go in thinking the odds are they're not going to give a lead role to Jim O'Hare. They're not going to give him a lead because at this time I'm the king of the guest stars. I've guested on tons and tons of shows. I've got a good career going, but I'm not the known guy from a series, So, and I'm thinking this is what they're going to be going for. But my head is always in the space, and this is always for any audition. Who knows what these people are going to do down the road? I don't know. And then not only what they might do down the road, what if they need a guest star for this show down the road? And look at what they did with The Office. So I just wanted to impress these guys. I just wanted to leave there having done a good audition so that if they do need a guest star down the road, hey, remember that guy that we read for? Let's bring him in to read for this. So that was my only goal. So I left the room feeling pretty good because we had a lot of laughs. We had Steve Carell in common, which is always nice when you have somebody you can chat about. And I think the last voice job I did in Chicago was with Steve. It was, I keep thinking Miller Beer, I don't know, some beer thing. And then all of a sudden, he's on anyway, so that's its own amazing story. But so I left the room and that was the end of it. 2 weeks go by and again, not even waiting for that call because I'm thinking they've got bigger fish to fry than me. 2 weeks later, we get the call. Would Jim read for this other role? So, of course, I go in and again, a full room of people ready to audition for it. Big guys, little guys, tall, short, fat, thin, the whole thing. And I get into the room and they had just really kind of created this material. They didn't have it written yet. Jerry didn't exist. And so apparently what happened is after I left, because they said this at one of the panels we did later, I'd never heard this at the time. Greg Daniels said to Mike Shore, he's funny, put him at a desk, it'll work out.
That's cool.
And that's what they did. And they put me at a desk and it worked out. Though, if you have time, I'll tell you a quick little story. So then we get the call that Jim, you booked it. And I'm like, what? What did I book? What role? I don't even know exactly what I booked because I've been there a couple of times. And she said the role of Jerry. I said, oh, yeah, no, that's cool. And then she said, my agent, and some people are like, oh, they were dumb to tell you that. But they told me something in their behalf. They were trying to cover my ass. And that was, they said, are you sure you want to do this? And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she said, well, they're telling us, they're being very honest. They have 6 main characters they have to take care of. They don't know if Jerry's going to last. They don't know what's going to happen. And my agent said, we don't want you to feel like you're doing background work. And I knew what they meant because, at that point I've done a lot of guest spots and a lot of different things. And there's nothing wrong with background work. I've done it. But that would have been going backward in my career. That's, you don't want to do that. You want to go forward. So anyway, But for me, she said, think about this. So I did, called the next day. Greg Daniels created these characters on The Office that became Kevin and Phyllis and Oscar and Meredith. For me, it was Angela. It was a no-brainer. So I thought, if it turns out and Jerry does disappear, okay, I think I have to take that risk. It just seemed like a good risk to take. And they were offering me guest star money every week. So if they want to pay me guest star money to sit in my ass, feel free to do that. So, yeah, so for me, it was a no-brainer. And obviously, it worked out.
Yeah, and you wound up being one of the very few people who were on every single episode, 120.
Every single episode. Yeah, 126. It makes me crazy. IMDb, which I don't even normally look at, but somebody said, "Oh, you missed 2 of the episodes." I said, "No. Well, according to IMDb, there were 2 I wasn't in." Not correct. I believe me, Amy, Nick, Aubrey, and that might be it. That was in every single episode. Just because at the time, like when Retta started, who played Donna, she had stand-up gigs already booked. So she couldn't, at the beginning, she couldn't be there for some of them. So, yeah, no, I'm proud. I was in every single one of them. Sometimes just walking by saying, "Hey, Leslie, there's a phone call for you." But still, I get it. You know what? The residuals still come in for it.
Well, see, that's another thing, too. So, once you hit, and I'm going to go back, of course, to when you start there. But once you hit 100, you hit syndication. So,
well, no, nowadays it's 88.
Oh, is it 88 now? So that's even
88's the new magic number. Yeah.
Still hard to hit. I mean,
still hard to hit. Yeah. Yeah.
So once that happens, like everything is better for every actor on that show as well, right? As far as residuals and everything else, like, people can live on Jerry money now versus before.
It has its, yeah. It's first of all, as an actor, that's the dream. The dream is to get on a show that makes syndication. That's a huge dream. And I am grateful every day, because every year I make $250 million in syndication. And and that's kind of FU money, you know what I'm saying? No, but it's nothing like that. But it's lovely, and every 3 months you get, quarterly checks, and they go down every time. Just that's how it works. But they're still lovely, and that's the actor lottery as far as I'm concerned. And this is a true story. I have not bought a lottery ticket since I was on Parks, because I feel like that was my ticket. That was my lottery ticket. It is the gift that has kept on giving. It opened up so many doors. I mean, here we were talking about auditioning. Since Parks, I would guess 80% of the work I do, 85% is offers. And that's lovely. Yeah. You know what I mean? Sure. The manager calls, "Hey, Jim, listen, we got an offer. Do you want to go to Canada to do a blah, blah, blah?" Okay. And we check the schedules and whatever. That's a game changer. And that's only because of Parks. That's they already feel they know you, and they know what you do, and they just bring you in. And, and also because of Parks, my quote certainly went up. So yeah, no lottery tickets. I won it. I already won it.
Jim, what was the pilot that you landed back, your first pilot?
Wow, this is kind of a crazy story. So it was called the Jeff Foxworthy Show, and he was Jeff is this stand-up comic, yeah. And it was I wish I could think of his name, because he directed tons of the Mary Tyler Moore shows. He was the director. But anyway, so I was very like, oh my God, first of all, I couldn't believe I booked it. Like my first season, I got a pilot. That makes no sense, but I did. So the show starts, and we're going to rehearsal, and I'm the local bartender. It's basically he has a construction company, and they hang out at the bar and at his house. So when they're at the bar, I'm the bartender, and I take care of business. So I don't know, about a weekend, things were getting weird. And again, when I say weird, I didn't know what was normal or what wasn't, but I heard from some of the other actors, well, this is kind of weird. They're kind of doesn't seem like people are digging what's going on. But again, I don't know. Then I show up the following Monday, and the lead actress is gone.
Wow.
Oh. she's gone. Okay. And I didn't understand that because she was awesome. So I'm like, oh, I don't know what this. So I call my agent to go, I don't know what's going on, but the lead actress is no longer here. She's not here. She's gone. And my agent said, well, let me do some digging. And they called me back and they said, yeah, things are changing quickly. So the next day, 2 of the other guys gone.
Jeez.
Like, damn. So then they put the whole project on hold. And I'm going to guess it maybe a week and a half later, because they only can hold you for a certain amount. They pay you for a certain amount of time, for a pilot. And then at the very last day, we get the call, I'm gone also. So basically what happened, what we heard later, who knows? This is just what we heard. There was Jeff's first time at bat with this. And he was a little nervous, or people around him were nervous that maybe other people were funnier and the show he wasn't going to shine maybe as much. Who knows? This is what we had heard. I don't know what's true. But if that was true, I'm always like, big mistake. Seinfeld proved it. You don't have to be the funniest in the room.
Yep.
You just have to be in that room with funny, and funny will work. Because I knew something was weird when they got rid of the wife, because she was awesome. I remember watching her going, oh, I'm going to learn from her. And so when she was gone, but it also made me feel better when I got booted, because I thought, well, I'm in good company. We all got booted. Yes, and then
they tried keeping you.
Yeah, you're like, I'm still.
Well, who knows? Who knows what the plan was? But they redid the show, brought in new actors, a different premise. I forget what it was, but it was a totally different show. And it's a pilot, as I've learned since. That happens all the time. But for me, as the new guy, at the time, I'm like, oh, wow, I got a TV show. Well, first of all, a pilot doesn't mean a TV show. A pilot means a pilot, because 90% of them will never see the light of day when you're done. But at the time, I wasn't young, but I was new to LA. I was like 32, 33, which is weird because I'm only 36 now. So it's weird how that worked.
Math is strange.
The aging is very bizarre.
Yeah, math is hard, but
it's the 250 million.
It was a crazy experience.
So, I mean, and you're so right though about having people being worried that somebody else is funnier, because the best shows, everyone is good. And, I make that comment all the time. Parks and Rec, everyone is good. On Seinfeld, everyone is good. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, everyone is good. Everyone brings something to the table. And it just also shows your contribution to Parks, because you're hired as someone to hang in the office. And then all of a sudden, as episodes go on, you start to be given a lot more, the whole mystique of Jerry,
who's Jerry? Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, there's and he has his moments later on. For anyone who's streaming it now, I apologize, but he gets his. Not only does he get his due, but when you get to all of a sudden, and I'm getting to this at this point, I have to. You wind up being cast. Your wife is Christy fucking Brinkley. Christy Brinkley gets cast as your wife. Now, I mean. That when you heard that news, that must have been pretty bananas.
Well, Christy and I had been dating, as I'm sure everybody knew. And I'm sorry, something funny about that?
Sarah,
I don't understand, Rob. What's so funny?
Actually, you know what it is? The 250 million. Now it makes sense.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. No, what happened was, so the Jerry thing. Once they realized who Jerry was, and Jerry's going to be as Ron Swanson would say, the schlemiel and the schlemazel of the office. It got to the point where, Mike Schur will tell stories of, he'd have to say to the writers, okay, we have to stop with the Jerry jokes. We have other people to write for, because it's such a fun thing to do, slam Jerry bits. But then Mike realized, thankfully for me, if they didn't give Jerry something to live for, Jerry, why is he still here? It's too much. Right. And so people were pitching ideas. And I believe it was Amy had a really funny pitch at the time, because they didn't know exactly which way it was going to go. And Amy pitched, what if what if, at home, Jerry is like this tyrant, because at work, he's, put upon and he's shit on at work and everything. She goes, what if when he goes home, there's like this 90-pound woman smoking a cigarette. Oh God, he's home. Oh my God. Which is a funny way to go. But again, not a happy life. Like, why is he putting a gun in his mouth? So then they came and they decided, no, Jerry's got to have some good stuff. So Mike says to me, we did table reads every Wednesday, and because Mike wasn't on set, and it depended what was going on. A lot of times the writers, they're only on set if they wrote the episode, and Mike was running the writer's room, so he's, believe me, a lot on his plate. But you would see each other before the table reads, and he said, okay, here's what we're thinking. And he said, we're thinking of giving you a supermodel wife. He goes, yeah. And he said, we're actually thinking like a Christy Brinkley type. And I said, well, now I'm thinking I'm being played. Like, they're not going down. That's too good. That ain't going to happen. He said, yeah. I go, well, I think that's awesome. Whatever. So a couple days later, I hear from them that it's Christy Brinkley. I said, whoa, what are you talking? What? Because the plan was to get a Christy Brinkley type. Well, they thought she'll never say yes, so that's the type. In other words, we're going to get a supermodel type person. And they needed someone who wasn't in her 20s, because, Jerry's in his 50s at that point. They gave me a birthday every 4 years. I think I was 100.
That's right.
Yeah, it was crazy. So apparently, and I found this out later, they make the call to Christy Brinkley. Again, not thinking she's going to do it. Christy mentions to her daughter, Sailor, yeah, they want me to do this show called Parks something. And Sailor goes, Parks and Recreation? And she goes, yeah, that's it. And they want me to be somebody's wife. And Sailor told me later, she's going through her head, who's with who? Who's with who? And she goes, Jerry Gergich's wife? Goes, yes, Mom, please do it. Please do it. I love that show. So because of her daughter, Sailor, Christy jumped on board. And so Sailor would fly in every time Christy did it, because Sailor loved the show and she wanted to be on set. And recently she did Dancing with the Stars. Kate Flannery, who's my pal who played Meredith on The Office, was doing Dancing with the Stars. So we actually met up there and had a bit of a Gergich reunion. But it was one of my favorite bits on the show is when Ben just cannot figure it out. It just... right. Was she kidnapped? Was she brainwashed? What has happened that this is who Jerry is married to? Christy, not Gail Gergich, but Christy Brinkley.
And there's such a fantastic scene that just sums it all up, and it's when Leslie comes to the house and the whole family's there and they sing the Eggs, Bacon, and Toast song.
Eggs, Bacon, and Toast, yeah.
And but there's a moment, because of all of Jerry's mishaps and mistakes and all of the things that he's done in the office that are ridiculous, the moment where the mug goes up and you just catch it, so cool. It's like your home is the alternate universe to what it is in the office. And it's such a subtle moment, but it's like when you catch it and everybody just claps, and he's like, what the fuck is happening? It's just...
Yes, because in the office, it would have shattered. I would have stepped on it. I would have had 20 stitches. It would have been a whole thing. But right. In my home, where these people look at me like I walk on water, I was the king of that castle, and they loved me. And that's exactly what Mike's plan was. Jerry has to have the best life of anybody, and he really does. He loves his coworkers. As much as they give him a lot of shit, I know they love him too. They had his back every time it really counted. And so I think they nailed it. And that's the episode where Leslie realizes, wow, Jerry's got it all. Yep. He shows her those books of their vacations. He sees them, how sweet the family is, the group hug that she sneaks out of because it's so horrifying. But she realizes, wow, he's really got it all. And that was the goal. That's when like Mike said, you have to give this guy something. There has to be a reason he doesn't put a gun in his mouth. Right. And Jerry knew what was important, and that was his family. I mean, even the day he set on fire, he's like, well, his arm is burnt, the jacket, everything's burnt. He's like, well, got to get home. It's meatloaf tonight. Gail's making meatloaf. He heads out. Yeah.
See, if Parks and Rec stayed filming during quarantine and everyone was working from home, Jerry would be the coolest guy there all the time.
Yes. Yes. Though, as you saw in the episode, Jerry had some trouble with the emojis. But, what are you going to do? Yeah. He goes, Jim, when we were taping it, he goes, you have to move your head different ways. And I said, why? He goes, we're putting a big shit thing on your head. Oh, okay. Sure. That just makes good sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about that reunion. So how long before they announce it, do you guys know? Are you planning it? Do you all of a sudden just get a call? Like, is it months before, or did this come really fast?
Yeah, this came up fast. What happened was since the day we wrapped production, the fans have been talking about a reunion. Like literally the day we were done. When are you guys doing a reunion? Okay, calm down. We just finished. And so many shows were doing reunions. They brought back Murphy Brown, and they go on and on. Everything was a reunion. We had no intentions of that. We did a Poehler Fest last year. We were all together, all 10 of us.
It was excellent.
Even Pratt was able to be there. I mean, and his schedule is crazy. We were all there, and somebody said, would you guys do a reunion? And Mike Schur, he looked down at all of us and he said, 2 things have to happen. 1, each one of these people have to want to do it. That's 1. And 2, we have to have a real story to tell. I don't want to do it just to do it, just because it would be good ratings or whatever. It would have to be a story to tell. So, and we all agree. We totally agree with that. Now, we've all said, we have this thing called the Parks Family Text. So we're still in contact all the time. So we're back and forth, like we all would do it in a heartbeat. But again, if there was the right time to do it. Right. Because a lot of people are like, well, you'd never get Chris Pratt back now. He's a big movie star. I guarantee you, Chris would be the first one there. Yeah. It was a set unlike any other. I've been on many sets over the years. I've been on shows. I've been in shows since. It was unlike any other. And we would be back in a heartbeat. Now, we all said down the road, maybe a storyline will come up, thinking way down the road. And also Parks has kept all of us busy. I mean, we all, again, it opened up a lot of doors. So generally all of us are always working, doing something. Retta's gone from series to series. I'm doing like movies of the week, and I'm going to different countries to film. I mean, it's a gift. So anyway, pandemic hits. We're all trapped at home, and we get an email from Mike, and he said, listen, guys, I got a message from NBC. They're looking to raise some money for the COVID-19 food banks because people are going without food. Would you guys consider doing something? And I think Mike said within 40 minutes, he had heard from every one of us. Like, yes, what can we do? What can we do? So a lot of people were doing table reads, which is cool too. Just a way, people could watch their favorite shows, read an episode on Zoom. And so I think that's kind of what we thought we'd be doing. And then Mike, just said, you guys, I kind of got an idea. Everybody hold off on everything. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I'm going to guess 2 or 3 days went by and we get the email. Hey guys, here's what I'm thinking. What if we did a new episode? And we were blown away because I did not think he was thinking. I didn't know what he was thinking, but to write a new episode, it just seemed a lot. Plus, he was still producing The Good Place. I mean, they were having their finale. I mean, a lot was going on. But he said, that's what I'd like to do. What do you guys think? And he goes, I was thinking what we'll do is we'll all donate our salaries. And NBC said they will match it. They will match whatever our salaries would have been. As well as then put money, to do this. So I think you have to get, what do we get paid? We got paid SAG minimum. I'm not even sure what that is. You have to get it. Like you have to be paid to be on television or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, it was nothing like we would normally be paid, but we were like, dude, yes. I mean, with literally immediately, we all said yes. So within 4 or 5 days, he sent us a script. And as always, like I was for 7 years, I was blown away. He got back some of the original writers and they pounded it out, on their own separate computers because nobody was together. And then we did a table read, a Zoom table read. It was so awesome to be together again. And then they made changes from the Zoom table read and sent us a script and said, okay, this is our shooting draft. And we're going to send cameras and lights to your house. And right away, I'm like, okay, hold the phone here. Dumbass, tech dumbass right here. Like, not what I do, this will not go well. They said, we will get you through it. We promise we'll get you through it. So Morgan Sackett, who produced all of Parks, he's our line producer and directed a bunch of Parks. He and Dean Holland, who also directed a bunch of Parks, and Mike, they sent us cameras. A box showed up in front of the house with lights and cameras and equipment. It was all wiped down. The guy had a mask on who delivered it. Bring it into the house. They taught us how to set it up through Zoom. We each had to set up our own homes. I live in LA in the Valley. It's very sunny, palm trees, all over the place. And I have, a big yard with a pool. It's not a Jerry house. So we had to finagle it so that it looked like a Jerry house. So we set up my office, which is on the other side of the house that doesn't have all the windows. And because my house that I live in now is 100,000 square feet. Anyway, the helicopter is so loud. Oh, the damn helicopter when I come and go. So I needed to but anyway, so I did my office. We set up my office, but then it had to be night. And so I ended up having to put dog beds against my window outside, held up by ladders. It was nuts. It was crazy. But it darkened up the room. And then I put a computer next to me on Zoom, and they talked us through it. They sent us the wardrobe we needed. They sent us any props we might need. And they talked us through it. And I think my session, I'm going to say I did everything in maybe 3 hours, but we all had to sing Bye Bye Lil Sebastian. So we put in our, they had the pre-recorded song for us. So we all had to do that. It was wild. I did not know how it was going to turn out. I had no idea, but we were really proud of it. Yeah, it was such a fun end to do that sing along. Like a lot of times, you don't get to like you only have 20 something minutes to you're never making everybody happy. It's not going to happen, especially considering the constraints that you have. Like you're doing this episode. And while it's a new episode, you're not able to do it the way you normally would. So, the fact that I like that they just really kind of gave everybody a little, it was almost like a little greatest hits packed into 22 minutes, which was really, really nice. And I still hold out hope that the show actually comes back as a show. Wow. Not that happen, I don't know, but you know what? Why not? You never know. You never know. The night we wrapped, my sister, can I talk about the ending or is that spoiler alert? You can. We just warn everybody. Just don't watch it. If you haven't watched yet, to tune away for a minute or two. Tune away. Yeah. And it's, okay. Because most people, I think, have seen it. But though I will tell you, many people have told me they've never watched the finale because they feel then it's over. They just start watching it over again. I'm like, well, you really got to watch because Jerry, good shit happens. Yeah, you want to watch. Yeah. But at the end, they age me to 100 years old, and of course, Christy Brinkley has little lines on her eyes. But it aired, and my sister calls me, and she's like crying. I go, "Oh, I really got to." She goes, "No, they killed you off. How could they do that?" I go, "I'm 100. What do you mean they killed me off?" And she's like, "Well, if there's a reunion show, you won't be able to be in it." I go, "Dumbass, they're jumping all those years. They'll jump back for the reunion. I will be alive. They're not going to do a reunion where everyone's in their 90s. That will not be the show they choose to do." And then she was like, "Oh, okay." And then big smile. Yeah. Yeah, it was a great and a fitting end. And do you have some time so I can go through some of these Yeah, whatever you need. All right, we've been getting a lot. Hold on 1 second. I'm not 10 more minutes, I'll take the helicopter. Yeah. Yeah. Tell Spielberg start on the appetizer. I'm on with Rob. Anyway, go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry. There's lots of stuff goes on here. Appreciate it. I know. You can hear it. Yeah. I know. That's my helicopter noise. It's Chase and Stella getting on it. Yes, exactly. All right. So, Chase and Stella. Those are my puppies. Lori knows how to do research. I love it. All right, so I'm gonna bring up some questions here. First one, Kayla Check says, "Hi Jim, I'm a huge fan. I'm just wondering what your favorite guest star role is that you've ever done." Wow. Okay. Kayla, it's easy for me, and it might be something you don't even know of or have heard of, but it was one of the first. And the reason I say it's my favorite or one of my favorites is because it gave me an opportunity to do something I didn't normally get, because it quickly became I was the big funny guy. But years ago, I did an episode of Diagnosis Murder, and I was a bad guy. I was a serial killer. I would cut women's tongues out and I'd put these butterflies in their mouths. I was a mess.
Damn.
And I got to work with Dick Van Dyke, and I was raised on Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, All in the Family. Those were my shows. So to get to work with Dick Van Dyke, who turned out to be everything I wanted him to be, because sometimes that doesn't work out. Sometimes you're like, oh, wow, I'm going to be working with so-and-so. I can't believe it. And you're like, ugh, what a bitch or what an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, it can go the other way. But he was everything I wanted. So I would say I can go back to that. And I was, they wanted the character to be someone you didn't suspect. So I was supposed to be the guy you wouldn't expect as the killer. But I got to do a scene with Dick Van Dyke where when it was over, the producers came up to me and said, we have never seen such a look of disgust on Dick's face. And I thought I fucked up. I go, oh, I'm so sorry. And he goes, no. You scared him. And I was like, yes, that's the good stuff.
Awesome.
So that's one of my all-time favorites.
I think it would be fun to be the bad guy too.
Yes, it's so much fun. I did right after Parks ended, I did a film called Middleman, and I was the lead in it. And he turned out to be this. He kind of starts out a little bit like Jerry, but it gets crazy pretty fast, and it's just fun. It's just fun when you get to go psycho. It just is.
That's awesome. All right, next question. From Mandy Evans. Jim, you're incredible and I love you. Question. I thought that should have been enough. do you have a piece of the wildflower mural too? And if so, can we see it? Now, I'm not going to ask you to go get it, but do you have a piece of that?
Well, first of all, Mandy, thank you. I love you too. That's very sweet. I do not. No, I have pieces of doors. I have my, what did I take? I took my, when Jerry was retiring, they dedicated a room to him, R.I.P. Instead, because it was a mix-up or whatever. So no, I don't have that. But I can also tell you, Nick Offerman, and none of us knew this. He had a bunch of the doors taken from the set, and he turned them into oars for all of us.
Wow!
Because Nick can do anything. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we all have that. No, I don't have that. I'm so sorry.
All right, next one. Let's see. I like this one. Is Rob Lowe a vampire?
Yes.
This comes from Joel Fong. Yeah, that's true.
Yes. Next question.
We didn't even touch on it. Fantastic on the show as well.
Yeah, let me tell you about Rob Lowe. So Rob Lowe comes in, and we're told Rob Lowe's coming into the show. Oh my God, that's a movie star. Like, what? So it was exciting. So Rob Lowe, some paper, I think maybe our third or fourth season, I forget, either a Chicago paper, I don't know where it was from, but it hit the set pretty quick. It was a picture of Rob Lowe and I next to each other, and it said, what's wrong with this picture? And it went on to say that we were only born a year apart. Now, we know what they were getting at. So I said to Rob, dude, you're the freak, my friend. It ain't me. I look like hell like I'm supposed to. You are the one who has cut some damn deal with somebody, because this is not human what you got going on. It's amazing. And then I'll never forget, there was one time we did I think it was I'm going to say a Sun Valentine episode. And between scenes, we were all rapping, and Rob had wanted to do a scene with Rashida, I believe. He takes his shirt off. Now, I don't care who you are. When you get older, even if you work out all the time, skin changes, textures change, your body changes. You can still have the muscles and stuff, but it changes. It just does. He takes the shirt off, and I'm like, what the fuck? He looked like he was 18 years old. It's a deal with the devil. I don't know what's happened, but he's done something wrong.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and boy, what a good storyteller. Woo!
Oh, yeah. I mean, that
guy around Rob. Yeah, because, he's met everybody. He knows them all. And it's just, oh, my God, just a great storyteller.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay, this is more of a comment than a question. Tim Elliott says, I like Jim playing a rather strange truck driver on Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, that was weird. And funny that would be mentioned because I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I guess I'm going to say it. I'm going to be doing something with those people very soon. I'll just say that.
Oh, wow.
Nice. And when you would you,
I'll leave it at that.
is Bryan Cranston one of those people?
With all of those people.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah. I just got asked to do something. So, but I and maybe it's public now. I don't know. So I'm not going to say what it is. It's maybe something. Who knows?
All right. No problem. I'm moving on then. Let's see. Okay. And this is more
because I can't spend a lot of time doing other stuff because I have to open syndication checks all day long.
No.
So it's hard to, Yeah. Right. And I'm dealing with a lawsuit because the mail person said her shoulders screwed up from all the checks. Anyway, that's my life. That's what I deal with.
No, I know you're not a technical guy, so you can't do direct deposit. It makes
I can't do direct deposit. No, and I can't do where you take a picture of the check. No. That doesn't work for me.
All right, next one. What was your favorite episode to film on Parks and Rec? This is from Ruby.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, Ruby. So many favorites. Again, I mentioned earlier, just to be there every day was so awesome. So I would hate the days I wasn't working. I mean, what job are you mad you're off? But I loved it that much. But I have a favorite episode for a reason. It's a great episode, but that's not my reason why it's my favorite. But it's season 2. It's called The Hunting Trip, when Nick Offerman's character Ron gets shot in the head. And Donna's, Donna Meagle, her Mercedes-Benz gets shot. I mean, just so many great moments. But the reason it's up there from one of my favorites is because it was the first time that all of us, other than Pratt and Plaza, Chris and April and Andy, I get all confused. They weren't with us, but the rest of us, for a week, we were in some forest in LA shooting this thing. And I really feel it's the week we all kind of fell in love with each other. And it just solidified what would happen for the next 6 years. And so that has special meaning to me. So that one is always one of my very favorites. But there's so many, the Harvest Festival, what a great one. Of course, the one where, park safety, where Jerry, gets mugged, supposedly. Of course, that's one of my favorites. I loved the Ben and Leslie wedding episode when he proposed to her. What a moment in television. I have so many. Yeah, and you were the one who brought Lil Sebastian into the room the first time. I did.
Jerry was the one who got to do it. So did they have like multiple little mini horses there? Was it just one horse?
No, we had one little mini horse who had a boner most of the time. And I'm not even joking. There is in the episode of the Harvest Festival, there's a scene where they pixelate his boner. It's not a joke. They had to because he constantly had a boner. So you couldn't. So we were waiting, so we wait longer. No, we got to shoot. My God, we got a scene. We got to shoot. So that's how they did it. They ended up pixelating it. But he was a sweet little guy. You'd feed him, apples and stuff. I loved him. But it was one little horse. And I did find out, because recently I've been doing a show called Bless This Mess, and there's animal wranglers on it. And one of the wranglers had wrangled Lil Sebastian, and she told me that he really did pass away in real life. So I did feel bad, but she said he had a great life. He lived really long for that type of breed. So that part I was really happy about. But yeah, that guy was a little horn dog. Then again, I don't even know if horses get boners because they're horny. I don't know. But and believe me, the last thing a guy wants to see is a horse boner to feel more inadequate. I mean, well, except for Rob. I've heard the stories. Yeah, except for Rob.
I appreciate that.
And now Franco, I heard, oh boy. Yeah, but whatever. People talk.
You get what you get. You get what you get.
Well, Jim, I can't thank you enough. This was such a great time. I mean, I could talk to you for hours, and you're welcome to come back and promote anything at any time that you like. And I hope you're staying safe. But I want everyone to go to your Twitter, which is just @JimO'Hare, and your Instagram is the same.
I believe so, something like that.
Jim O'Hare, you'll see You see pictures of his helicopter, his tremendous penis,
Yes.
All his checks.
all the checks.
Yeah. All this
Spread out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bank of America called me because apparently I have so much money with them. I kind of own the bank now. And so I don't know. Maybe I'll do something. We'll see. There's so much to do. I don't know.
Well, you know what?
Because believe me, that's what my life is like.
You can lay on it like the Breaking Bad money. Just
Exactly. Yes. I burn when I'm cold. I just take a couple of hundreds and just
throw 'em in
light
the
them
fire.
around me. Yeah.
Well, if you could do one more thing for us before you go, I'd love to get an ID from everybody. So if you could just
Sure.
give us this is Jim O'Hare and you're listening to the whole podcast, I'd really appreciate it.
You got it. This is Jim O'Hare, and you are listening to the whole podcast. All of it.
Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks, you guys. This was a lot of fun.
no problem.
Thanks, Jim.
Just hang on one
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Hang on 1 second. I'm going to play a quick outro. I'll be right back.